All right, we'll give everybody a few minutes to get loaded up on here today. We're hoping to have a good crowd. This is going to be a whole lot of fun. Nehemiah's story is, man, there's so much meat in it. We're definitely not going to get to all of it today because it's so good. You could literally take bits and pieces of Nehemiah's story and make whole hour-long lessons out of it. So we're going to hit just some highlights today and really focus in on just a few things to help you guys. Like I say, we're going to give everybody a few minutes to kind of hop on, make sure that we get as many people as we can. Oh, just saw that Mr. Aaron's here. Perfect. As we go through today, make sure and use the chat. Make sure and use your reactions. Make sure and use all the goodness that Zoom allows us to use. Guys, this is interactive. We want you to interact through chat so that we can get feedback, and it gives us an idea if we're heading in the right direction for what you guys are here for and what you guys need. Just a little backstory. My name is Cory Long. I've spent about 17 years in full-time ministry. About 10 years ago, we literally created a whole new life. We started all over from scratch, moved back to Texas after we had done ministry work in Colorado for a little bit, and started over with businesses with the whole idea of doing like ministry without taking a paycheck. That was really the whole premise behind what we started 10 years ago. Our goal of doing that and creating this environment to where we could not only do ministry without taking a paycheck, but really grow our reach, grow our impact, grow our ability to give, really grow our ability just to live life on our terms instead of having to live life on a 9 to 5 and 5 or 6 days a week and having to do things on everybody else's terms instead of our own. So that's what we did 10 years ago. We created a business that was initially our marketing company, and that created a training business and another training business and an epoxy company and a consulting business and a funding business and all kinds of other stuff now that we do as businesses. So I want to make sure today that we hit on the things that are going to impact, make a shift in your mindset. Look, everything that we do, whether it's in our business, our health, our relationships, our ministries, our nonprofits, the job that you have right now, whatever it is, your family life, all those things, it's beliefs that drive actions. And I'm probably going to push back against some beliefs today. That is where we sometimes set and we get really comfortable. And if you are wanting to start a business that's going to grow, a business that's going to thrive, you have to be okay with being uncomfortable. And the more that you're uncomfortable, the more you can grow. It literally is a matter of stretching beyond. And today we're going to see a story. We're going to talk about a story that is created out of that. Make sure you guys drop. I know some of you are already doing it. Drop in the comments. We'd love to see where you're from and maybe even why you're here today. Maybe you're here just to get a good word. Maybe you're here because you're looking for encouragement. Maybe you're here because, hey, somebody sent you here and they were like, hey, go to this link and watch this bald guy talk and it's going to be a great experience. I don't know. Whatever it is that you're here for today, look, we want to give you, we really want you to leave here today encouraged. We know there's a lot of reason to see negativity and all the other stuff that's kind of going on around us. I think we're going to see today that Nehemiah ran into the same thing. This isn't anything new, guys. Like this, there's nothing new under the sun, right? It's this. We look at the story that we're going to look at today, I think you're going to see some things that maybe you resonate with, things that you're going to be going, oh, that's me, or oh, I need to do that, or oh, this is where I maybe haven't lived life right or done something right. So that we want to make sure that we're not only moving in the direction that we need to, but we're, again, going back to those beliefs. If we carry certain beliefs, especially about the way we do life, especially about the way that if you're starting a business, You guys, however you do one thing is how you do everything. And so if you are the kind of person that doesn't take care of certain aspects of your life personally, it's going to spill over into your business. And as it spills over into your business, the same problems you had personally are going to be the same problems you have in your business. It just will happen that way. And it doesn't matter if it's business. It doesn't matter if it's your ministry or nonprofit that you're involved in. It doesn't matter if it's your health. It doesn't matter any of those things. When you get serious and you make a decision, however you show up, especially how you show up privately, is going to be the confidence that you have. It's going to be the character that you have, so that when you do go to the outside world and you show them who you are, that you can have that confidence to be able to go, hey, look, here's where I'm at, and here's where I'm going, and here's what I'm going to do. If Nehemiah can do what he did, coming from the background that he came from, I can guarantee you, God's got incredible things planned for you. He just needs you to step out and go do the thing. So I don't know how many of you guys have really spent much time looking at Nehemiah. He's an interesting character. He is someone in scripture that you could sit down and read the whole story in a very short amount of time. I would encourage all of you to do that before we get into what we're doing today. I would encourage all of you to sit down and just read the whole story. Because if you read it through, and I would encourage you, I don't know if y'all do this, but I love using like Bible apps or some of the other tools that we have to where we can take and we can look at it. Today we're going to be reading from the ESV, but I would encourage you to read from the ESV and go look at the Message and go look at NIV and go look at maybe some other versions just to see what do they say, how the NASB maybe, or another version. How are they different in the way that they bring the same message? Each one's going to have a unique bent in the way that it tells the story. And so I want to make sure that today, as we kind of tell the story, we understand that Nehemiah wasn't the guy that you would have hired to go do this. Kind of sounds familiar in scripture, wasn't it? The disciples were not the guys that probably would be hired at the church that you go to right now. In fact, they probably would have been kicked out as soon as they sent their resume in, if they even sent their resume in, because these were not guys, right? Nehemiah was not the guy to go rebuild the wall. Nehemiah worked for the king. He was the cupbearer. So he was the guy that would drink, right? He would drink before the king to make sure there wasn't poison in there, which was not only was it a brave job, but it was a pretty crazy job to have to do. He literally was putting his life on the line on a daily basis. I don't know how many of you guys do that. I know I don't. I don't put my life on the line on a daily basis right now, doing marketing or epoxy work or whatever, right? My life is pretty simple compared to the life that he lived. He was close. He was not only close, he was so close with the king that he spent time with him every day. He had the king's ear. So don't as we read this story, I think sometimes we think of somebody like Nehemiah, we think of a cupbearer and we think, oh, they're just a servant. Well, I don't know that just a servant was the guy that was going to be spending that kind of time with the king and the king would trust and the king would spend the time with. And actually, as we get into the story, you're going to see that the king actually knew when Nehemiah was upset because he knew him so well. And so as we get through this story, I want to make sure that you guys kind of put this in the frame of mind that it needs to be. Nehemiah was important. He was important enough that he spent a lot of time with the king. He was important enough that the king actually paid attention and knew when he was struggling and when he was having issues. Not only that, but he was high enough up that he had the king's ear enough that he could ask the king something directly. Not very many people were going to be able to do that in this time. Now, we're going to see that he actually served the king of Persia. King of Persia at the time, he ruled over a lot. This was so think of him as being the superpower of the day. So Nehemiah served the king in a way, and he served the superpower of the day in a way that gave him the ability to be able to do things in a way that really probably no one else in that time would be able to do. And as we look at this, I want to make sure that you realize, like, did Nehemiah have to do any of the stuff we're going to talk about today? No. He was comfortable. He lived in the palace. He had a good job. Like he lived within a bubble of his own comfort zone. He didn't have to do the other stuff. He didn't have to go and get uncomfortable. He didn't have to go and deal with the threat of war or battle or the threat of whatever. He didn't have to go and lead a bunch of people that at that point were really struggling. He didn't do any of those things. But we find out through the story that there was a whole lot more going on than just that. So Artaxerxes, as we kind of get into this and we see the king, he's going to play a kind of a smaller part in this whole thing. But as we see Nehemiah and kind of what he does, I really want you to sink into really who he is, what he's about, that he's not just some servant running around that doesn't have any kind of say or doesn't have any kind of options, or maybe he was trying to get out of the life that he had or any of that. That was not who he is. He had a great life. He was doing something he enjoyed. He liked the king. He was happy doing what he was doing. So again, what we talked about a minute ago, Nehemiah had to get uncomfortable to follow what God wanted him to do. So as we talk about today, I just encourage you to look at where are the parts and the things in your life maybe that you're going to have to get uncomfortable to do what God's calling you to go do. So let's get into the story. Let me share my screen. We're going to get into Nehemiah 1. If you're on the feed today and you're live with me today, make sure Aaron's going to be in the chat. Guys, Aaron's one of my trusted advisors. He's going to be hanging out today with us today, and he's going to talk a little bit at the end about some things that we have going on. Make sure that you're jumping in there. If you've got any questions or anything comes up or anything pops up, Aaron's your guy today. So make sure that you utilize him. You can see him waving there. So make sure you utilize him today and welcome him today. Guys, we're going to be in Nehemiah 1. We're going to use the ESV today to kind of go through this. I'm going to be skipping through a lot of this. Again, highly encourage you to go back and read this. You've got Nehemiah sitting in the king's palace. He's doing his thing. He's got some buddies that come back from going and seeing what's happening, from the remnant, from the group of people that was still left that came back to Jerusalem, back to Israel, right? And so when you think about this, it goes all the way back, right? This is not just a story that just started right here. This is a story that went all the way back, and the remnant that was brought back into Jerusalem, back into this area, they're trying to restart their lives. They're trying to figure out, how do we make a living, and how do we have our farm or our cattle or our sheep or our goats or our whatever to be able to live and survive during this time. And so these guys, these friends of Nehemiah, went back to check out Jerusalem, check out the people, check out the Jews, just to see what was going on. And we catch it here at the end of verse 2. It says, came with certain men from Judah. This is one of his brothers. And he said, he asked them concerning the Jews who escaped, who had survived the exile, and concerning Jerusalem. And they said to me, the remnant there in the province who had survived the exile is in great trouble and shame. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down and its gates are destroyed by fire. Now, if you go back and you study the history of this literally happened 140 something years ago. For 140 something years, Jerusalem walls were rubble. The gates had been destroyed. And over time, it just got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. The people that had been brought back here, the Jews that had been brought back here, were in a situation where they were having to just kind of pick up the pieces. They were not wealthy at that point. They were not doing great at that point. They were trying to figure it out. And without Jerusalem's walls, without the defenses that they had, and without the opportunity to be able to do the things that they would have done. I mean, you think about it, that meant that the temple wasn't rebuilt, that wasn't accessible for them to be able to go use. It meant all of these other things. It wasn't just that the walls were down. Think about, like, this was their identity. This is who they were. This is the place that they would go to worship. This is the place that they would go to be the Jews, to be the people of Israel. So he's asking them, like, okay, what's going on? Like, how are they doing? And it says that they were in great trouble and they had shame. Like, this was something that they couldn't defend themselves. They were ashamed of what was happening with their whole world and the culture and the thing at the time. They were just in a sticky situation. Now, when they come back, I want you to pay attention. he actually gives us the time frame of when this happened. This would have been dead of winter. This would have been darkness. They were actually in a different place than where they normally would have been with the palace. This was a different place that they went during the winter months when it was dark and cold and nasty and all that kind of stuff. And so I want you to pay attention to the time frames of this, because in scripture, sometimes we just kind of skip over a lot of that kind of stuff. And we don't pay attention to the fact that from the time that Nehemiah knew about this and the time that he actually talks to the king, there's quite a bit of time that's passed. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. So when they met with him, this wasn't something that was impulsive. So it wasn't like he just all of a sudden had seen this and immediately went to the king or something like that. We're going to talk about kind of that time frame. But we do see what he immediately does. So in verse 4, it says, as soon as I had heard these words, I sat down and wept and mourned for days. I continued fasting and praying before the God of heaven. And I said, O Lord, God of heaven, the great and awesome God who keeps covenant and steadfast love with those who love him and keep his commandments, let your ear be attentive and your eyes open to hear the prayer of your servant, that I now pray before you day and night for the people of Israel, your servants, confessing the sins of the people of Israel, which we have sinned against you. Even I and my father's house have sinned. And he goes on really just talking to God, going, look, God, look, these are your people. What can I do? What can we do? I want to make sure that I'm initially saying, look, I know who you are. I know that you're an awesome God. You're a great God, that you're a God of covenant. You're a God of love. And I want to make sure that I remember that you keep your commandments, and that you remember that you keep your commandments, and that your people are hurting and that your people are needed. And all of the stuff that's kind of going on right here, immediately, guys, the very first thing he does is he weeps and he mourns, he fasts and he prays. And I don't know about you. This is the way he heard about people that were his people that were hurting. As soon as he heard about this, he immediately stopped. He sat down, he wept, he mourned, he fasted, and he prayed. I don't know, is that your response whenever things are tough and things are hard? Do you call out to God? Do you spend time on your knees doing the things that we know that God's called us to do? Years ago, I spent some time with one of the churches that we were involved in, and we did a 48-hour fast as a whole church. And we spent time in prayer, praying individually for every single church member and any prayer requests that were put in during that time. Everyone gave a certain amount of time to go do the thing. We all fasted, but the prayer time was split out into hours, and we would show up at the church and each one of us would take an hour for that 48-hour period, and we would pray over what it was. So it was everybody from just the church members to us as staff. I was a youth minister at the time. I just remember the impact that had on me. And sadly, I've not spent that kind of time again doing that kind of thing again. And I see Nehemiah immediately do that. Is that your first reaction? Because that was Nehemiah's. And immediately we see Nehemiah take that action to the time where he comes in now and he starts to talk to the king. Now, again, I mentioned a minute ago that this was quite a bit of time that had passed. Guys, from the time that he heard about the Jews and the time that he actually has this conversation with the king, it's been 4 months. This wasn't overnight. In scripture, it seems like they came, they showed up, he fasted, prayed, he spent some time doing the things he needed to do, and then boom, he talked to the king. This was 4 months later. He was not an impulsive guy. And so it says in the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when the wine was before him, I took up the wine and gave it to the king. So, right, he's a cupbearer. That was his job, right? He was a waiter that took a drink. Make sure that the drink, wine, whatever it was not poisoned, so that the king lived, right? So now I had not been sad in his presence. And the king said to me, why is your face sad? Seeing you are not sick, this is nothing but sadness of the heart. Then I was very much afraid. I said to the king, let the king live forever. Why should not my face be sad when the city, the place of my father's graves, lies in ruins and its gates have been destroyed by fire? Then the king said to me, what are you requesting? So I prayed to the God of heaven, and I said to the king, if it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in your sight, that you send me to Judah, the city of my father's graves, that I may rebuild it. And the king said to me, the queen sitting beside him, how long will you be gone, and when will you return? So it pleased the king to send me when I had given him a time. Look, here's the crazy thing. Number one, for him to request anything of the king, again, remember who we're talking about. This is a cupbearer. This is not someone else. This is a Jewish cupbearer in a Persian king's servant lineup, right? This is craziness, thinking that he would have this kind of a relationship where the king actually saw him sad and asked him, what's wrong? He knew him that well. They had a relationship enough that Nehemiah prayed to God and just went for it. He shot his shot. He took the opportunity to go, look, here's what I'm doing. Here's what's happening. Our land lies in ruin. The Jerusalem walls are down. I need to go rebuild this. My people are hurting. My people are needing you. Like, they need somebody to come lead them. Now, I don't know about you. I wouldn't think that the first guy that I would go hire to go do a bunch of construction work and lead my people is going to be a cupbearer. Would y'all hire the waiter at the local restaurant to come do that for you? That's kind of what they're doing. That's literally what we're talking about here, is this guy that has probably not led, that has no construction experience. I would imagine this guy's feeling like a whole lot of imposter syndrome at this point. And yet, what does he do? He says, you know what? I'm gonna request from the king to go do this. I'm gonna request from the king. I'm gonna leave the comfort of the palace where I have food and I have drink and I have a bed and I have all the comforts, and nobody's gonna kill me today unless I drink some poison, right? No, right? He's literally requesting from the king, hey, let me go do this thing. And the king, since they have such a great relationship, apparently, the king goes, sure. How long are you going to be gone? And when are you coming back, right? Like, tell me, like, what's the plan? Like, how is this going to work? It's just fascinating, number one, that he was able to do that. And then the king not only does that, if we read down here below, he literally asks he sends a convoy with him to make sure he's protected. He asks for the king's forest to get timber for the beams, for the gates, and for the fortress, and for the temple. He asks to pass through all the land. Remember, superpower, right? He's in charge. So he literally gets the signet, a covenant, right? He gets something to be able to take with him, to be able to go, hey, I'm on a convoy with king. Let me pass. Give me safe passage. They keep him safe. He gets the supplies he needs. So not only Nehemiah already was becoming resourceful, he's already a master negotiator. The cupbearer, remember who we're talking about. The cupbearer is a master negotiator. He already negotiates that he's leaving his job and his post. I have no idea who filled in. Somebody would have had to been filling in for him while he was gone. He leaves his job and his post. He travels with the king's guard. He has now wood that's going to come from the king's forest to make sure that he has the wood to rebuild the city. He has the backing of the resources in the king. Do you think there's something to do with all of that, why God chose him to send him? Yeah, I would think so. Kind of crazy to think that not only did that happen, but why, have y'all thought about why didn't God call somebody that was already in Jerusalem? Or a nobleman that already had the money and the clout and the leadership and the people? Or somebody else, like a priest or somebody else that is already in that area? Nehemiah had to travel. Nehemiah had to come all the way from this other place to a place where I don't even know if they really knew who he was. What he like, I have no idea, right? As we look through the story, like he's literally coming from afar to come back to a place. Again, there had to have been some imposter syndrome. There had to have been some other things that were happening, and he pulled him in. And you never know where God has put you for the reason that he's put you right now. There's a preacher that I love listening to. One of the things he talks about all the time, he's literally said this for 20 years. He's like, look, there are mission fields everywhere, but God puts you in the neighborhood that you live in right now for a reason. God put you in the gym that you're working out at, or the job that you work at, or the business that you're involved in, or the nonprofit or the ministry or whatever it is. God put you there. Like you're there for a reason. You're there in that place for a reason. It's not like you just randomly was there. You're there for a reason. So, are you taking advantage of why you're there? Are you taking advantage of that and actually doing what you need to be doing with what God's put you, either the place or the time or the whatever? He's put you in this place in this time at this very reason. And he put Nehemiah in the place and the time under the king's, not only that, a king's favor, so that he could actually have a conversation and go back and do this with the king's resources. All right, right off the bat. I mean, like literally right off the bat. We see in verse 9, right? He came to the governors of the prince beyond the river, gave them the king's letter. Now the king had sent him with officers of the army and horsemen. Remember, he's sending somebody to protect him. But when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite, soon as these other powerful men heard, what did they immediately do? They were displeased, and they did not want somebody to come rebuild the people of Israel. They just didn't. So, as soon as you start something, guess what's going to happen? Opposition. Why would you think that you wouldn't be opposed as soon as you start a business? Especially if God's called you to the business. Why would you think that there's not going to be some pushback? Look, has anybody here, have y'all been through that? Have you faced opposition when you started something, a ministry, a business? Have you, look, if you start Digital Storefronts, guess what's going to happen? You're going to face opposition immediately. And it could come from the outside like this, or later on, we're going to find that it comes from the inside sometimes. Somebody's going to look at you and there's going to be opposition somehow. We just have to know that from the very beginning. Who here feels like they're facing resistance right now? Drop it in the comments. I'm curious. Are you facing opposition in what you're doing right now? Whether you're building a digital storefront business, whether you're building some other kind of business, you literally are in a position. Yeah, look at that. There's yeses filling. What makes us think that this is just going to be some kind of we just build it and they come kind of thing? It does not work that way. It's great in the movies, but that is not how it really works when we build something. We're going to face opposition. I don't know if y'all thought about this. There's no one that you know or that you look up to right now, this very moment. There is no one that you know that has done anything great, that hasn't had tons of failures, setbacks, opposition, people bashing them or negativity or any of those things. No one. So if you're facing opposition right now, it could be that that's a sign that you're headed in the right direction. For some of you, you may have looked at that as a negative thing. The reality is that it could be a sign that you're going in the right way, the right direction right now, today. I know some people that just started a business that we're helping them with their marketing. We're using the Digital Storefronts techniques on a business that's going to be a coffee shop that hires Down syndrome and other adults to work in the coffee shop that have special needs. It's a beautiful ministry. And as soon as they started the business and went down that route, guess what happened? Well, there were extra expenses and extra things they had to do and permits and this and that. Opposition. There were roadblocks immediately thrown at them. You've got to be okay with that. And we're going to talk about that more as we go, but I want to make sure that you understand, you've got to be okay with that. All right. He gets to Jerusalem. Nehemiah gets to Jerusalem. He's got all of this. He's got the backing. He's got these people now, these opposing forces that don't like the fact that he's going to try to help the people. So we're going to read a couple of verses here, and we're going to talk about what he did as soon as he got there. So I went to Jerusalem, was there 3 days. Then I arose in the night, a few men with me, and told no one what my God had put in my heart to do for Jerusalem. Did you catch that? He hasn't shared with anybody yet his vision. Not yet. He rose at night and a few men with him. He went out at night, guys. Like he went out at night with just a few dudes that he could trust, hadn't told anybody what's going on yet or what's happening yet. Now, Sanballat and Tobiah apparently kind of knew what was taking place. They knew that somebody was coming to help. But apparently the people didn't know. He hasn't shared with them yet what was going on. So he literally went out at night, went through all of this, and he went gate by gate, wall by wall, and he went through and he looked at all of these different places. And it says in verse 16, and the officials did not know where I had gone or what I was doing, and had not yet told the Jews, the priests, the nobles, the officials, and the rest who were to do the work. Now, I want you to think about this. One of the things that we find out later on is there's not very many people actually living in Jerusalem. The city was like the walls were in rubble. It wasn't a safe place, probably. There were a lot of other issues that were going on. There weren't very many people actually in Jerusalem at the time. It actually says that he had to actually rebuild a house for him to live in Jerusalem while he was there. So this isn't a place that he comes to and we have this visual of a city that's, thriving and bustling inside. That's not true. This is a city where very few people were actually living there at the time. We find that out later on in the story, and that things were in rubble and all of that stuff that was kind of going on. So I want to make sure that you realize when he gets there, he doesn't impulsively just go tell them, hey guys, we're going to fix all this. We're going to do all this. I don't know if y'all have ever done that in a ministry or not. I have when I was naive and dumb back when I very first started in youth ministry. If you go into a ministry, for all of you that are in ministry, if you go into ministry and the very first thing you do is start making a whole bunch of changes and start telling them exactly what's going to happen and the blah, 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 what do you think is going to happen? Like I was naive enough to do this back when I very first started doing ministry work, to think that I was going to come in and just change everything. Instead of taking into account, taking the time, not being impulsive, taking the moments to go, hey, what do I really need to do? And assessing the situation. Like he assessed what the walls, like what's the damage and what needs to be done and how much work is it going to take and where are we going to have to actually go get the supplies or the lumber or the whatever. And like I say, he'd already kind of got some of the resources. It wasn't like he could Google, how do I build a wall? It wasn't like he could go get any of these other things that were happening to go figure out what the answer was going to be for this thing. Because he was making this stuff up as he goes. I think he was super resourceful. What I have happen a lot of times in digital storefronts is somebody will join the training and it's like they forget how to be resourceful. They forget how to go use Google. And so just so you guys know, we give unlimited Google searches for free in digital storefront. It's a joke, right? Everybody gets unlimited. But sometimes we forget. Nehemiah had to go, okay, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to figure this thing out? And he went and assessed the situation, figured out kind of what was going on, right? And he started with a complete mess before he shared his vision. I don't know, maybe I'm the only one. Have any of y'all shared a vision too soon? And when you shared the vision too soon, yeah, like you immediately got it was not a good thing. You shared it in a way too soon that it really backfired on you and caused issues. Like that's what Nehemiah could have done if he would have just rushed in and went and did the thing. And yet that's not what he did. He took the time, went and figured it out and did that. If you share your goals too soon, if you share your things too soon. Now, when we moved away from the children's home, we moved back to Texas, we started that initial business. I still have that business to today. Actually, guys, I just closed, I was sharing with our team. I think we closed somewhere right around $65,000 in new business in the last week or so, just for our marketing company. People are spending money right now on marketing because they need to, they have to. If you want to survive in today's market, people ask me all the time, is digital storefronts ever going to become saturated? I'm like, there's 500,000 new businesses that form every single month in the United States. 500,000. Do you think it's ever going to saturate? There's no way that it'll ever saturate. There's always going to be a need for people that do what I do. If I would have came out 10 years ago and said, hey, we're going to go start this business, or we're going to grow it to the point where we're going to do all these things and blah, 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 and I had had negative people around me, luckily I had very positive people. My family supported me. Now, they all kind of looked at me like I was half crazy. I'd done ministry for 17 years. We were broke. We were literally having to borrow the money, and we were having to do all this other, like it was a wild trip. Moving, we didn't have the money to move. We didn't have the money to get to pay for the rent in the new house. We didn't have the money to start the business. And so we had to borrow all that. If I would have shared too many things up front and shared the vision too soon, it could have caused a lot of negativity in my life. It could have caused a lot of it to backfire. But we got there, and then we kind of started assessing the situation and kind of went from there. We did the same thing when we started Digital Storefronts 5-ish years ago. We kind of looked at the situation. People kept asking me, hey, how do you do this? 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 And I was like, okay, fine. I'll create something. We created it actually at Glorieta adventure camps at Glorieta, New Mexico, at the church camp we were serving at the time. The guys came out, brought crews, and we started filming the training. If you start too soon without assessing the situation and really knowing what you're going to be doing, it's it's not the healthiest way to do it. Nehemiah didn't do that. I would not have spoke on stages, built an 8-figure business, built multiple 7-figure businesses, built other 6-figure businesses. I wouldn't have spoken in front of hundreds and hundreds and well, probably thousands now of marketing companies. I wouldn't have built sites all around the world. We wouldn't have worked with clients. So I wouldn't have done all of those things if I wouldn't have taken 10 years ago and taken the time to start the business and not let other things affect me. Because the negativity that's around you guys know there are some people around you that you do not need to tell your dreams to. Because those people, they are not living their dreams. And guess what? They don't want you to live yours either. And so be very careful about who you tell your vision to. And also the timing has to be right. For some of you, the timing is right now. I was telling Aaron and the team on our call yesterday, we were talking about digital storefronts and the new students that are coming in, some of the success stories that we're having. Guys, right now is a prime time. Like, you talking about a prime time to start a digital marketing company, literally right now. Like, I don't know that there's been a time in the last 10 years that I am not, like, I'm sitting over here just, like, I am so excited right now about what's happening in the marketplace, because the opportunities that are happening, the gap is widening between people that know what they're doing and the people that don't. And as that widens, it's going to give opportunity for things that just really aren't going to be ready. So you need to surround yourself with people that are going to cheer you on, and they're going to take and give you not only the, like, if you look at Nehemiah, he walks into a place where, again, we don't know how many people know him, like know him. They know he came from the king. They know he had a letter. You know, they had the king's people. He knows he has resources, all those things. But he literally gets put into a position, as we find out later, that he's kind of becomes the governor of what's kind of happening within that time period right now for the Jewish people. So once he was ready, in verse 17, it says, then I said to them, you see the trouble we are in, how Jerusalem lies in ruins with its gates burned. Come, let us build the wall of Jerusalem, that we may no longer suffer derision. And I told them of the hand of my God that had been put upon me for good, and also of the words that the king had spoken to me. And they said, this is so important, guys. He shared his vision. He shared who had told him what to do, both God and that he had the resources of the king, right? He got the support. And they said, let us rise up and build. So they strengthened their hands for the good work. So they literally, all these people said, hey, good, let's do this thing. You know, they needed a leader. They needed somebody that would step up and say, hey, I have the support of the king. God told me to come do this. Like, let's go get the thing done. Let's go build the wall. And people followed. People followed. It could have went very different than that. Sometimes, you guys, we just need to be brave. We need to remember whose we are and that we're sons and daughters of the king. I want to let that sink in for a minute. We need to remember whose we are and that we're sons and daughters of the King. So I want you to think about one of the things that happened this last weekend. My daughter started a jewelry business. She said, Dad, can you come help me? So we set up at the farmer's market. We set up at another market downtown here in Lubbock this last weekend. Guys, I can't tell you how proud I am of her, of taking the chance and putting all of this jewelry out on display for people to see, because it could have gone very differently. But because she had my support and she knows that God's got her and she knows that she makes really pretty stuff, like she just went for it. And she sold almost $900 worth of stuff in just a couple of markets in about 5 hours. That's not bad for a brand new business. She just put herself out there. Some of you have not had the bravery, had the courage, had the support even to put yourselves out there. Make sure that you're surrounding yourself with a community that will do that. All right, so we see the good results of this, right? We see the people that are supporting him. But in verse 19, it says, but when Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem, the Arab heard of it, they jeered at us, despised us, and said, what is this thing that you're doing? Are you rebelling against the king? Then I replied to them, the God of heaven will make us prosper, and we, his servants, will arise and build. But you have no portion or right to claim in Jerusalem. Again, opposition is going to happen. People are going to be negative. People are going to push back. People are going to say that you can't do it. Some of you have lived with that for a long time, and you have allowed these people to continue to be viruses and cancer in your life right now. You've allowed them to speak negativity into your life. They're going to mock you. They're going to say you can't do it. They're going to bring up all your past stuff. They're going to do all of that. Just like Sanballat and them are just mocking, and they played the game the whole time. We can't listen to them. We have to make sure that we're surrounded by them. Guys, over the next little bit, literally Nehemiah gets everybody from gold makers, goldsmiths, to priests, to the families that just lived there that were farmers and businessmen and women, to people that were just servants. He gets all of them involved, and they all start joining in, and they all start traveling in. So remember, not very many people live in Jerusalem. So people were literally having to travel in to help actually rebuild the wall and rebuild the gate. And you can read through verse 3 and verse 4, like, or chapter 3 and chapter 4, all of these, like, it goes through and tells exact people. These people went and did this. So it'd be like me saying, hey, Jim went and did this with his family, and Robert went and did this with his family, and Aaron took his family, and they went and rebuilt this wall or this gate, and Nadine did the same thing, and Nikki did. Like, it would literally be like us going through and telling, hey, here, this family, Cory Long's family, they went over here and they rebuilt this gate. And that was their responsibility, right? And that's literally what he does. He goes through and he just starts talking about all these different people, and all these people were traveling in to do all this stuff. So I'm not going to read verse or chapter 3, because it just literally just starts telling the story about how it happened. Everybody was getting involved. Everybody was excited about what was going on. His leadership drove them to want to be involved in what they were doing. Now, as soon as this all happened, as soon as they started having success, what do you think happened? Maybe you guys have seen this in your own ministry or your own business or your own life, maybe for your health or your relationships that you have. As soon as Sanballat heard that they were building the wall, he was angry and greatly enraged, and he jeered at the Jews, and he said in the presence of his brothers and of the army of Samaria, what are these feeble Jews doing? Will they restore it for themselves? Will they sacrifice? Will they finish up in a day? Will they revive the stones out of the heaps of the rubbish and burned ones at that? Tobiah the Ammonite was beside him and said, yes, what are they building? If a fox goes up on it, he will break down their stone wall. Literally, like the moment that they start having some success, these two losers over here are jelly. They're jealous of what's happening. These two other leaders are so jealous that they just start throwing things like, oh man, if a fox ran on that wall, it would fall down, blah, 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 blah. And guys, remember, this isn't some little, y'all go look at this. The walls of Jerusalem aren't some little bitty tiny wall. These are 30-something feet walls. These are, some areas was like the wall itself was 10 feet thick. This isn't some little rock brick wall that we went out and we just put together. This is huge. It's a massive undertaking. And yet these two losers were watching this, and they're jealous of what's happening, and they don't want them to regain power. I don't know if y'all have ever done this with your youth groups, but back years ago, back in the very first youth group I had in Big Spring, we'd always do this thing where we would stand somebody up on a chair. And then we would have them grab two people's hands and we would say, okay, the person on the chair, I want you to try to pull the other two people up onto the chair. And you guys resist. What do you guys think happened? Every time they would pull the person off the chair. It's a whole lot easier for negativity and people down below you to pull you down. Now, what you're going to notice is people that are already successful, they're not going to be your haters. They're not going to be the people that are going to be negative. They're not going to be the people that are driving you down and not supporting you and making fun or calling out your past history or whatever. They're not going to be those people. Sanballat and Tobiah, those were the people that, they didn't want them to do this. When people are not happy with themselves, we used to have a saying inside of, I helped lead worship for Celebrate Recovery for a few years when we were at the children's home in Wichita. Hurt people hurt people. If somebody's hurting you, trying to hurt you, more than likely they're really hurting. There's some damage in their own lives that they're projecting on you. Sanballat and them did not want that to happen. And we find out eventually that they start to kind of claim that they're going to come and attack and all this. And so what does he do? What does Nehemiah do? He literally puts guards out. And so now he's having to take people that normally would have been build the wall, and he's having to put guards out to protect the people as they build the wall and protect Jerusalem as they're rebuilding it. So now he's got a 24-hour watch to where there's people that can actually do this. So he says, so we built the wall, and the wall was joined together to half its height, for the people had a mind to work. Meaning that, look, they were getting after it. These people were getting after it. Remember, crumbled for 141 years at least. Now all of a sudden they've got half the wall built. When all of this kind of started happening and they started repairing the wall, I want you to see what's happening on the inside. It says, in Judah it was said, the strength of those who bear the burdens is failing. There's too much rubble. By ourselves we will not be able to rebuild the wall. Have any of y'all ever been a part of an organization? Maybe it's a business, maybe it's a church, maybe it's a nonprofit, maybe it's something else. There's just a couple of cancer viruses in there that are always spreading negativity and gossip. That's what was happening in the people of Judah. And as they spread all this gossip and all this stuff swirled, right? And who do you think was spreading all this stuff, right? As they were having success. Now, when you start to have success in your business, guess what's going to happen? It's going to come from the outside, and there's going to be people, and it's going to come from the inside. And sometimes it's going to be your own belief systems that's going to say, you're not worthy. You're not worthy of this success. You're not worthy of that kind of money. You're not worthy of that much business or that much freedom or that whatever. You're not worthy of that vehicle or that house or that thing, or you're not worthy of that love, that relationship. Sometimes it's the inner voice that ends up becoming the negativity, the virus that ends up driving us away. Nehemiah was smart enough to go back to God every time. Nehemiah would go seek God. He would go, look, God, here's where I'm at. Here's what I'm doing. I'm following your course. Protect me, right? Protect me. And in verse 14, he says, do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome, and fight for your brothers, your sisters, your daughters, your wives, and your homes. Look, if we're going to build a business, you better be ready to fight. If you're going to do anything great in this world, you better be ready to fight. You better be ready to go, hey, I'm going to surround myself. I'm going to go out and I'm going to find people that are going to support me. I'm going to make sure I got a community surround me. I'm going to make sure that I'm doing the things that I need to do to fight. And we need to go back to God to make sure that we're doing that. Sometimes you got to change strategies as you go. Some of you keep using the same strategy thinking that you're going to get a different result. Sometimes we have to change strategies as we go. And as Nehemiah went, he started changing strategies. He started changing what they were doing. So Nehemiah prayed. He put guards in place. He even put trumpeters out so that there's a trumpeter that would warn and alert everybody if something was to happen and they were attacked, so that everybody could come together and fight together. right? And then they eventually started to even have one hand. You remember this? Y'all know this from the story. They had one hand on their sword and the other hand was building the wall, right? It's this idea that I'm always ready. Kind of sounds like Gideon, right? Kind of sounds like some of the other stories in scripture where people need to be ready. They need to be ready for what's coming and they need to be ready for the battle that's happening. But it says, when our enemies heard that it was known to us and that God had frustrated their plan. Isn't that fascinating? God had frustrated their plan. This wasn't only a physical battle that was happening or a mental battle that was happening. This was God's battle. We've done Kingdom Impact calls on all kinds of different stories about that. We all returned to the wall, each to his work. We all had our own responsibilities. We went back and made sure that we were doing our job, right? So what are you doing to welding right now? What are you going to do when fear sets in? Because it will. You're going to get to a point where the money's going to run out, the time's going to run out, the business is going to run out, something's going to run out. Something's going to run out as you're going through your business and you're building things. Something's going to run out, and at some point, fear is going to start stepping in, and you're going to have to make some decisions. Guys, after this, famine sets in. Famine sets into the people, and now they're all freaking out because the nobles are charging them a whole bunch of taxes, and Nehemiah has to go fix that. And then he leaves for a while and he has to come back and he finds out that they had quit doing the things that they were supposed to do and he had to fix that. Like, this is a never-ending tweaking situation. Can I tell you guys something? Like, this is going to be this crazy secret that I'm going to tell you. There's never a time that's going to come inside of your business where you're going to wake up one day and go, oh, I don't really have to do anything today. Everything's going to be okay. And you're just comfortable and there's nothing to do. Like, the moment that you start thinking that you're just going to glide and that things are just going to go just smoothly, and there is no such thing. You're either moving forward or you're moving backwards. There's no such thing as just sitting still. It does not happen. It doesn't happen. What we do is we grow our capacity to handle it. We grow our capacity just like Nehemiah did. We grow our capacity of leadership. We grow our capacity to handle the roadblocks and the issues and the frustrations and the setbacks and the failures and all the other stuff that happens. It doesn't matter what you do either, guys. Like, it doesn't matter if you're just trying to get in shape and you go to work out every day and then all of a sudden you pull a muscle or you do something that stops you from being able to go work out, or you have to travel, or your eating gets all thrown off, or whatever. We have to learn to have we grow our capacity, we grow the muscle, we grow our ability to be able to do that. Are you growing in a way where you can lead the people around you? Don't you think Nehemiah had to grow as a person to do this? From a cupbearer to a governor, to a guy that's creating building a new wall, creating a new culture, getting people back in place, making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do, making sure that people aren't going to get killed from Sanballat and these other people that all want to come in and kill them as their enemies. He had to stay vigilant. He had to stay locked in. And are you staying locked in? Are you staying locked in every day, day in, day out with God, and locked into whatever it is, the purpose that he's given you? Because if you're not, you're going to end up finding out like Nehemiah, as soon as he kind of let things go, it started swinging back and people got comfortable, and all of a sudden, no longer were they doing what they were supposed to do in the temple, and no longer were they doing all the stuff that they were supposed to do for their culture and their beliefs and their everything. And he had to go back and he had to get rid of all of that again and sanctify the temple again and go through the whole thing again. Nehemiah took care of them. He led them. He stretched as a leader. Are you growing into that leader to become the person that you need to be? He stayed vigilant. Have any of you ever experienced what I'm talking about? If you have, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear what your experience has been in those situations. Look, all of us are going to have haters. All of us are going to have negative people. I've got haters out there online. I've got haters that don't even know me. They've never been in our course. They've never seen anything that we do. They've never been through the course. They have no idea, but they put reviews up and all of this, all because they're leeching traffic off so that they can sell their stuff. It's just the truth. They just make stuff up. There's really nothing I can do about it. Not from that standpoint. So I have to ignore that, and I have to do the things and control the things that I can control. I literally have people that have come back to me after years and years and years that have maybe been negative towards me in the past. I had a guy not too long ago come back to me and go, look, hey, I'm really sorry. I had no idea that you were actually in the right with all that. And I was like, well, you should have known I wouldn't have done those things that they said. And he goes, I know. He said, I just got caught up in it all. And he came back and he apologized. And he was like, look, I'm really sorry. I was like, I don't blame you. Like I don't have any ill will towards you. I'm just glad you're my friend again. We're going to have people that are going to come out of the woodworks, guys. They're going to start to complicate things. So I want you to see something here. If you look at what happens with everything that happens within this whole thing, right? I'm not going to get in. I'm telling you, there's so much story here. There's way more story here than what I'm able to actually hit on today. I want you to look at this in verse 15 right here. So the wall was finished. Look at this, 52 days. The wall was finished in 52 days. Not because they had the best leader, not because they had everything right, not because the plan was perfect, not because they had Googled it all and made a business plan for it, not because they had all the finances and the resources just right, not because they had everybody educated just right, not because they were in prime conditions. We know that. They could barely even get around the wall. It was so much rubble. They were using outdated techniques and outdated stuff, and they got it done in 52 days. So let's just be real. What could you do in the next 52 days if you just committed? If you said, I'm going to go rebuild the wall in 52 days, and I'm not going to let any naysayers, I'm not going to let any negativity, I'm not going to let any failures, I'm not going to let anything like lack of resources, I'm not going to let any knowledge that I don't have, I'm not going to let anything happen. I'm going to make sure that I choose to do what I'm supposed to do. If you committed for the next 52 days, how would that change your life? Like, I'm curious, like for the next 52 days, how many of you could completely radically change your life in the next 52 days? Like, drop it in the comments if you believe that. Nehemiah did. Rebuilt a whole stinking wall with a bunch of farmers and people that had nothing to do with anything to do with construction. Right? In 52 days. What could you do? The threats didn't stop because he started having success. So don't buy into the lie that all of a sudden it's just going to become easy and everything's going to be great. No, you're going to continue to fight for the ground that you're going to take. At the end of 16, the enemies knew that God was behind all this. And they knew God was behind it, but they didn't stop. So don't think that one day it's all going to be rosy either. And Nehemiah, that was the way it worked. So I choose your heart today. Like, you've got a choice. You could literally choose your heart today. You can choose to continue to work a job, hopefully retire in 50, 60 years, right? And hopefully have enough health to go do stuff. My dad did that. He waited until the very end of his life. Now, he built a business, but he chose to do business in a way that required him to be there. It was just a job. It was just a job. And by the end of his business, his health was given out, and he wasn't able to go do the things that he wanted to do. Right? Or what? Maybe you're going to choose health-wise. Maybe you're like, look, man, I'm going to choose my heart. I'm going to eat right. Like, I've been on carnivore diet now for about 6 months. I'm down from my heaviest I was a couple of years ago. I'm down almost 40 pounds. My blood pressure is great. My health is great. My energy level is great. Like right now, I have not eaten lunch. Normally, I'd be having a massive drop in blood sugar and I would be struggling, and like it would not be pretty. I don't have those issues anymore. I don't have the crashes and the waves of sugar and all that mess. I haven't eaten sugar in months. Haven't eaten wheat in months. Choose your hard. Are you going to work out? Are you going to make sure that you do all the things that you need to do for your health? Or maybe it's AI. Maybe you've been buying into this whole AI thing and you're like, look, man, I'm just going to put my hand in the sand. I don't think anything's going to happen. For all of you that were on our virtual call last week that we did for AI training, I had mentioned on that call, they're saying by the time 2030 hits, 60-something% of all jobs as we know them today will be gone. 60-something%. Your job may not even exist 4 to 5 years from now. Now, you can stick your hand in the sand and hope that it all of a sudden something happens, but there's going to be all these new jobs that are created because of AI. Somebody's got to run the thing. Somebody's got to use the thing. Somebody's got to be smart enough to be able to actually do the thing. Some of you are going, yeah, but I don't know how to do any of that. Neither did Nehemiah. Nehemiah had no clue how to build a wall. Nehemiah probably had no clue how to lead. Nehemiah didn't have any of the stuff that you guys feel like you got to have to go do the thing. Choose your hard. Do you want to go learn it? Do you want to go build a muscle and a skill set to be able to go do the thing? Look, which hard are you going to choose right now? You could stay the same. You guys can stay doing the same thing that you've been doing, or you can choose to do something different. You can choose to make a difference. Nehemiah chose his heart. He could have stayed in the palace. He didn't have to go do the other thing. He could have stayed there just in the comfort of the palace walls. And yet he chose to go somewhere that he stepped into chaos. Some of you are being called to chaos. Are you willing to choose the hard that is chaos? Some of you are literally standing, some of you are standing at the wall and you're trying to decide, what do I do? Look, we have college students that are literally changing their whole worlds. I had a guy reach out to me the other day and he said, hey, you've completely changed my family through Digital Storefronts. I was like, I don't even remember your name. Like, this is a guy I don't even know. And he's not ever in the group. And he was like, you've completely transformed our family to where we're able to go do the things that we want to do when we want to do them. He's got a young family. We have retired folks. We have one retired family right now that took their whole family to Venice. He took a snapshot of himself in Venice, sent it back to the Digital Storefronts group and said, hey, thank you, DSF, for giving us the ability to take our whole family over here. He was a minister most of his life. He didn't have money. He used Digital Storefronts to create a retirement that he would have never been able to have. We have everything in between. We have people that are changing careers and starting new careers and all of that are doing this business in a way. We have look, I had a 15-year-old show up at a mastermind event of mine the other day. The kid literally they drove like 10 hours to come to this mastermind. Not his parents, mind you. Drops the kid off at the mastermind event. This kid's 15. He sits there, takes all the knowledge. The next day, he goes about an hour from here. They're visiting their daughter. He goes and a 15-year-old sits down at a restaurant, or I don't even think it's a restaurant. I think it's a convenience store. Sits down at tables. They have those little, like some of these convenience stores have a place you can sit down and eat. And he meets with a concrete contractor and closes the guy and gets cash that day for his Digital Storefronts business. Not his parents, a 15-year-old. Don't tell me that you can't do this, right? This is crazy. Crazy the people that I'm seeing now. He wrote me last night. And he said, or maybe it wasn't last night, it was last week. He wrote me and he said, hey, I got this other guy that I'm on the hook. He said, I could get a $25,000 commission off of this deal. I'm like, what? What are you doing? And he was telling me about this, whatever it was, this lead that he got, that he did it through the Digital Storefront method. And he was like, I handed it off to this guy. And he said, if they close the deal, they're willing to give me 25 grand for it because it's such a massive deal. That could change this kid's his whole family's. And you know why he's doing that? He's doing the business because his dad got hurt and his dad can't do the work that he used to do. And he's like, I want to help my parents. I'm like, are you kidding me? We have another family that was here for that same mastermind. And the husband's like, I want to become a professional fisherman. And I'm like, that's awesome, man. Tell me more about that. It took him a year to talk his wife into doing this digital storefront business. She's already landed clients. They've already got money coming in. They're literally starting to revamp their whole life around what they want to do and creating it instead of letting everything else dictate what they do. I love it. So choose your heart. Do you feel like an imposter today? So did Nehemiah. Do you feel like you're not ready to do it? So did Nehemiah. Do you feel like you don't have the support you need? I'm sure Nehemiah felt that. Do you feel like it's impossible to build the wall? So did Nehemiah. Do you feel like there's too much opposition? There's too much, maybe the economy's bad, or this is bad, or that's bad, or whatever. I'm sure Nehemiah felt the same exact thing. So here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for Nehemiahs. I'm looking for people that are willing to become the men and women that God called them to be, to go do the thing that he called them to go do. I'm looking for Nehemiahs that have a desire to build something that maybe right now seems impossible. When we started this business, $15,000 was my very first goal. We hit that in 7 months, actually 8 months. We hit 15 grand a month. I thought it was impossible. I'd never made more than 5 in my whole life in a month. And here we made 3 times that in a month. I'm looking for Nehemiahs. I'm looking for those that have failed in the past, but know that God has more for them. I'm looking for those that want a community that wants support and to guide them. I'm looking for those that aren't afraid to get in the middle of the mess, the rubble, the dirt, the grime, the mess, right? And do what's needed to become the men and women, right? I'm looking for those that don't quit when it gets hard. Look, I'm looking for Nehemiahs. I'm looking for those people that are ready to go to the battle for the kingdom. Because that's the whole purpose of all this stuff. It's not the business. Look, we build the business to go build the community so that we can give the gospel message, whatever it is that God's called you to go do. Look, if that's you, drop build into the comments. Whether you're in digital storefronts or you're not in digital storefronts, I'm looking for you. I want you to get excited about what's coming. If that's you, drop build in the comments. I would love to see people that are actually focused on what they want to be focused on moving forward because they feel like God's called them to something, given them the ability, given them the resources, given them the time. Look, you were right here, right now at this exact time because of a reason. There's a reason. Don't pass it up. All right, Aaron's got some really cool stuff to tell you guys. I know I've kind of gone over time a little bit. I'm going to let him hop on real quick. He's going to give you guys some information about some things that we have going on that are really cool. For any of you, because I know some of you are going, look, I am ready to build something and I am ready to be a Nehemiah. It's all yours, Aaron.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm seeing all of the builds in the chat there, guys. So, I was going to go one by one, but you know what? For anybody that is looking to really discuss with us what this looks like with us, if you are done believing stories that you've told yourself through the years of what you can't do, what you can do, we know if God leads you to something, he's going to lead you through it. So we know you're going to continue praying about this, maybe fasting about this. But for all of those that put in build and want to talk with us, I've been dropping some booking links for everybody. Hop on our calendar. Right? There's no pressure here. This is a discussion with your brothers and sisters about what we're doing, what you're trying to accomplish. Let's make sure this is the right fit for where you are on your journey. And that only comes through having conversations, right? No pressure to do anything on that call. Some of the stuff that we are really implementing in this training, Nehemiah did not build that wall by himself. He didn't go out at night by himself. And of course, I pictured kind of Noah's Ark as he started, the people just started coming, right? Maybe not 2 by 2s, but God started sending him the people that were going to help him with this mission. Guys, this is a community of people that you will be evenly yoked with here. And we have great classes to help you and coach you, but we have virtual office hours. If you just want to sit down with like-minded individuals and show up to do this work for your family, for yourself, for your ministry, guys, we are going to put a multitude of counselors around you that have the same goals, same visions. Maybe they've had the same limiting beliefs once upon a time, and they've worked through them. And how did they work through them? Guys, we just want the opportunity to talk with you and see if God did put this in front of you for a time, such as this, and if this is to really set you up for that next season. So again, a quick chat with us. The link is down there. I'll drop it again for you. But we've been seeing some amazing success, since this program has come in. And Cory, that's a credit to you and everybody that's worked hard to keep this updated with the best strategies of today. And, even the AI stuff that's starting to come in. This is just as much about preparing for tomorrow than it is for today. All right. So
Yeah.
really, we would love the opportunity to chat. I could share more. We could share more with you about what we're doing here. And guys, if this is the right fit for you, awesome. Then you have found something that is going to have an incredible impact on this next season. And worst case scenario, guys, you learned some new things, you met some good people, and maybe it's not the right fit. That's okay too. We all have to be okay with that. But this is something that's real, that's viable. And if you're really worried, if you're really looking to roll up your sleeves and get into the rubble, guys, we could build something very impactful right there with you. All right, so I'm dropping that link again. Hope I get to talk with you personally. We've got a great team here. Cory has really brought us up to serve you guys first and foremost with no assumptions. So let's just have a chat and see where God takes those conversations. Okay. Appreciate the time here, Cory. Hopping in.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you being here today. Look, guys, the bottom line is Nehemiah could have showed up at the wall and done nothing. Nehemiah could have stayed home. Nehemiah could have done all kinds of different things. He could have gave up on the route. He could have gave up when Sanballat and them pushed back. He could have gave up when the inner turmoil started happening within Judah, when they started going, no, man, they're never going to finish the wall. This isn't going to get done. They're never going to get to the goal, blah, 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 blah. He could have gave up whenever he went back and the people started doing the things that they weren't supposed to do, and he had to come back and clean it all up. There's a point when the rubber has to meet the road. And you got to do the thing. So it doesn't matter to me if it's digital storefronts, if it's some other business that you own or some other job or some other ministry or some other calling that you have. Great. Are you doing the things that you're supposed to do to make the impact that it's going to make? Are you building the wall? Are you changing the things that are supposed to do? Because here's the bottom line, guys. Look, it took 141 years. The wall was down. Took one leader having the guts to show up, say what needed to happen, grow into the leader that he needed to be, push back against the evil that was around him, make sure that he kept focused on God the whole time, and to really do the thing. He was out in the middle of the mess with the people doing the thing. 52 days. We actually have a 52-day Devo that we've created that we're going to be sending out to everybody that actually put in for this call. If you're watching this call later, make sure and drop a comment or let us know in one of our groups. We'll send it out to you. Guys, we have a 52-day Devo that will help you, that will give you some steps to start thinking about. Who are the who's that Aaron was just talking about, right? What are the things that I need to be doing on a daily basis to get those rocks up there on that wall? Like, what do I need to make sure that I'm surrounding myself with to make sure that I keep the right mental attitude and I keep the right physical, like this was a physical hard thing. This is going to be one of those things. But look, you got to go do the work. If you get into digital storefronts, do the work. Be resourceful. The most amazing thing that you can do for yourself right now is to be resourceful. There's always another option. There's always another way. There's always more who's that can help you. There's always resources that you can pull from. So if you laser focused right now for 52 days, that would put you like close to the end of April, the beginning of May. How would your life change? If you focused what you were doing right now for 52 days, just hyper focused, and you said, I'm not going to let any of that garbage, I'm going to quit paying attention to any of the news. I'm going to quit paying attention to any of the other garbage that's out there, right? I'm going to make sure that I'm focused on the things that I need to be focused on. I'm going to spend time with God. I'm going to make sure that not only I'm doing those things, but I am surrounding myself with who's that are going to help me, support me, guide me. Again, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's your health, go find a trainer, go find somebody to go work out with, go find somebody that's eating right, go find somebody that you can get in a group where they're putting constant encouragement. If your spiritual walk is not where it needs to be, where could you be 52 days from now if you just focused on your spiritual walk? I see that Scott's on the call today. I haven't seen Scott in a while, man. Love you, brother. I'm glad you're here today. Like, that's what he does. He's a pastor. He helps men and women grow in their spiritual walk. Find a Scott, right? Find somebody that can pour into you, that can help you, guide you, right? That can serve alongside you. Just like Aaron said, these people all came together 52 days. And if it's your business, where could you be 52 days from now if you just went all out? Used all your resources, used all your ability, used all your might, all your strength. Like if you said, look, God, I'm going to give you 52 days. Show me where you want me. Show me what I can do in this business. What could I do? For some of you, 52 days could completely radically change your life. At the end of 52 days, you could be sitting on the money that you need, the resources that you need, the business that you need, the base of clients that you need. It could change everything. 52 days. It's not even that long. So that's the challenge for today. I want you to go find like 2 or 3 things that you're going to commit to over the next 52 days. Whatever area of the life that you feel like you need to go grow in right now. And guys, if you're a Nehemiah and you're looking for a skill set that can radically change your life, just like it did mine, just like it did other people that are in digital store, get with us, get involved in Digital Storefronts. We would love to have you. And if it's not a fit, great. Find something else that's a fit for you, what you're doing, the personality you have, the things that you're doing. Bottom line, though, is find something. Because if not, you're going to sit around with another 141 years of rubble. And that is a miserable place to be. Just like where the Jews were. They were sitting in the rubble day in, day out. No one chose to do anything about it. They all were walking by it. They all saw it. They all knew it was there. They were ashamed. They were a broken people. It took one man of God to have the guts to say, I'm going to go do something about it. Maybe that's you. Maybe that's literally you for your family, for your kids, for your community, for your church. Maybe that's you. Let's go leave an inheritance to our kids' kids. Let's go build something that's going to last for generations. Let's go create a legacy that we're bringing people to God right and left because we are lights in a community that's so dark. All right, 52 days. You guys commit to it. I'll see you guys on the next call. Make sure that you are getting on the calendar if you want to talk to Aaron and the team. Appreciate all of you guys giving me a Tuesday afternoon. You guys are awesome. Some of you need to catch up with me, Scott. Some of y'all need to make sure that you're not spending time away from me and then you're not catching up with me. All right, you guys have a great one. I'll see you guys inside the group.